Yeah, well, let's talk about officiating, kicking somebody out of a game.
Whoa.
Hey, D-Bud has a question for you.
Kicking two somebody's out. I got a little fired up yesterday afternoon, Shefty. What's the fallout from Big Dom and Drake Greenlaw, the linebacker, the player for the 49ers that got kicked out of that big game? And Big Dom, obviously the head of security over there in Philadelphia. Any fallout from the NFL side going to be coming from that?
You know, I texted about that this morning. I have not gotten a response back. But what I would say is, you see Dom get in there, touch the player, and obviously Drake Greenlaw did not take well to that, and he basically struck back. Now, what was interesting to me after the game was how many 49ers players, mild-mannered guys, respectable people, came out and said, you're not allowed to touch a player. And there's Dom DeSandro on the field touching Drake Greenlaw, which the 49ers felt was an extreme violation. Now, you guys have been on the football field. I haven't. I've been touched by anybody like that. I don't know what it's like. But again, that struck me at how offended the 49ers were that Dom DeSandro would put his hands on Drake Greenlaw, which led Drake Greenlaw to hit him back. And so, by the way, Dom DeSandro gets ejected, Drake Greenlaw gets ejected. Who wins there? Like,
well,
Nick Sirianni doesn't have an escort walking up the field.
You saw what happened to the Eagles after Big Dom got kicked off that field last night? I don't have any
heart and soul. The Niners won.
Yeah, some things are bigger than just tackles.
That's
right. You know what I mean?
You raised a great point. We should not be talking about Jalen Hurts for MVP anymore. It should be all about Dom DeSandro.
Bingo.
You see how they play at home when Big Dom ain't allowed on the field at the link. I will say this. If Big Dom would have touched me, I would have smacked him in the mouth. No, I would not have. But I think, like, when fights happen on the sideline, coaches, assistant coaches, staff, they do get in between it. So, like, I understand where the Niners players are coming from, but this is like standard operating procedure on the sideline whenever a fight takes place. Now, I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong, and I assume, just because I got a chance to meet Big Dom one time, and I was walking down a tunnel. Big Dom walking this way on the tunnel. I'd seen his shape on TV before. You know what I mean? He's a very, he's a noticeable human. Massive dome, kind of got a little bit of a body on him.
Hey, Big Dom.
Great fade on him. Knew he was a Paisan, just didn't know what or who he was. So Big Dom introduced himself to me. I'm like, holy hell, Big Dom. And I started looking into Big Dom. Big Dom wants no problems. Big Dom just wants, hey, everything's gravy. Hey, everything's cool. Let's move along. That's his job. I think that is his actual title. Like, hey, let's just settle this, kind of. So I would assume after Sirianni told Kyle Shanahan, hey, I'm sorry about what happened, Big Dom will also be sending a message to the Niners. And I like that they have a budding rivalry, but I think the Niners players, if they ever meet Big Dom, would be big Dom fans. Big Dom. And on the flip side, Big Dom probably incredibly holds in high regards Greenlaw smacking him in the mouth, too. That's something Big Dom probably respected.
Absolutely.
You know, two alphas in there doing their thing. Let's hope everybody moves on. But Florio was talking about some, like, real fallout, potentially, for Big Dom. Are they going to ban him from
Florio.
Huh?
Not Florio.
No, he was saying potentially, but he does a lot of that.
Yeah, he does.
There's a lot of that. His brain is so talented at, you never know.
Hold on.
You never know. What they can't, because he's the head of security, right? So, like, head of security has access to everything. Would they ban him from us? What would that? Nothing, right?
My guess is they ejected him yesterday. That's the penalty that was imposed. I guess the league could impose a fine on him, which I'm sure he wouldn't be particularly pleased about. But I don't think the league is gonna. I don't think the league is gonna suspend him.
We need Big Dom on the side. We need Big Dom. The Eagles need Big Dom on the side.
Especially in the alley.
We saw that. Schefter's frozen.
They can't handle not having him on the sideline there.
All those guys on the team will respond very good to this. That's like their character traits, I think, personally. But it just felt like San Fran already had that moment happen. And then you add in all the stuff that happened in the NFC Championship. And then you got 5 guys walking in all black. It's a funeral. You got Debo wearing black Air Forces on the field, which is obviously a mentality setter that we've all learned about whenever Tomlin delivered black Air Forces for his entire team and said, we got to have a black Air Force mentality this year. So it's like, I thought that was the case going in, and I feel like they thought that as well, that Niners team, and they were dancing. You know, there was a lot of dancing in there. I thought that was going to be the mental state of that team, though. Now, I don't know what happens if they play again, though. You know, like I don't know what's going to happen to the Eagles next week when they play the Cowboys. I think they bounce back in a big way.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're saying all adds up, but it's in Philly. The game starts, and you're thinking, uh-oh. Yeah. I mean, it was Philly early, and you're thinking,
oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's a tough place to go and win. Philly was fired up, and then they just flipped it. And it just seemed like every possession from that point on, they were able to put points together. But they did look like the memory of last year, the motivation from last year. They looked like they were out to prove a point and send a message to not just Philly, but the rest of the NFC. Definitely.
I think so, too. Enjoyed the game. It obviously was a blowout, but great football players on there. And Brock Purdy continues to impress.